The year was 2425, and humanity had come a long way from the days when they looked up at the stars with simple telescopes. Now they were walking among them, traveling across systems and shaking hands, sometimes claws, sometimes tendrils, with species from distant corners of the galaxy. Earth had recently become a junior member of the Interstellar Alliance, a great council where dozens of advanced civilizations work together for peace, trade, and cultural growth. For many humans, this was exciting. For others, it was frightening. The unknown was always a double-edged sword. Ethan Cole, a 28-year-old engineer from Earth, leaned more toward the cautious side. He loved machines, engines, and the quiet logic of technology. But politics, alien customs, and social obligations, those were things he avoided whenever possible. Unfortunately for him, the Alliance seemed to have other plans. The message Ethan was working late in the docking bay of Earth's orbital station, tightening a plasma coil on a visiting freighter, when the communication alert flashed across his wrist device. At first he thought it was another maintenance request, but the glowing seal at the top of the message froze him in place. It was the crest of the Interstellar Alliance Council. He tapped it open, frowning. The message was short but very official. Notice of match. Citizen Ethan Cole of Earth, by the authority of the Interstellar Alliance Cultural Exchange Program, you have been matched. You are requested to present yourself at the diplomatic hall on level 7 within the next cycle. Your partner will await you. Ethan blinked. Then he read it again. And again. Matched? He muttered. What is this, a lottery? He rubbed the back of his neck, smearing grease from the coil. He had heard rumors about the Cultural Exchange Program. It was supposed to bring different species closer together, sometimes through trade, sometimes through education. But there had also been whispers about something else. Marriage alliances, strange pairings meant to create bonds that went beyond politics. Ethan let out a nervous laugh. No way. This has to be a mistake. But the message was stamped with the Council's highest authority. Mistakes didn't happen at that level. The diplomatic hall the next day, Ethan found himself walking into the shining halls of level 7. The diplomatic hall was nothing like the gritty docking bays he was used to. Here the floors gleamed like polished stone, and colorful banners of different civilizations lined the high ceilings. Tall windows looked out over Earth's curve, with the blue oceans glittering far below. Delegates moved through the corridors, humans in formal suits, towering reptilian figures in robes of gold, insectoid envoys clicking softly to one another, and feathery avians gliding on half-folded wings. It was like stepping into a living encyclopedia of the galaxy. Ethan felt out of place in his simple uniform, his hands still rough from work. He straightened his shoulders anyway. At the far end of the hall, an official in Alliance attire approached him. The woman's face was calm, though her eyes held a spark of amusement. Ethan Cole? She asked. He nodded. Welcome. Your match is waiting for you inside. My match? His voice cracked slightly. You're saying this isn't some kind of joke? The official smiled faintly. No joke. The Aurelians have requested you specifically. Please enter. The meeting, the chamber beyond, was quieter, filled with soft golden light and flowing banners of deep blue. At the center stood a figure, small, delicate, but radiating a strange calm. Ethan stopped in the doorway. The being before him was clearly not human, yet there was something graceful and almost familiar about her. She was no taller than his chest, with a slim frame and luminous silver hair that shimmered as though it carried its own light. Her large eyes glowed softly, shifting between shades of violet and blue. A faint pattern like stars traced across her skin, marking her as something truly otherworldly. She turned toward him, and when she smiled, it was both gentle and confident. You must be Ethan Cole, she said, her voice musical yet clear. I have been waiting. Ethan blinked. Yes, that's me. The petite alien stepped closer, tilting her head slightly. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Lyra of the Aurelian people, and I bring you greetings from my world. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words tangled. The moment stretched, and then Lyra said something that nearly made him stumble backward. You've been matched with a wife, she declared, her smile widening, and that's me. Ethan stared. For several long seconds, his mind was blank. Then he laughed nervously, as if she had made a mistake in translation. Wait, what? Did you just say, wife? Lyra nodded simply, as though she had just stated a fact about the weather. Yes, our council has confirmed it. The match is official. From this day we are partners in the alliance bond. Ethan's jaw dropped. His heart thudded in his chest. Partners? Bond? I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm an engineer. I fix ships. I didn't sign up for whatever this is. Lyra's violet blue eyes softened. She took a step closer, folding her hands before her. I understand your hesitation. But know this. The Aurelian people do not choose without care. We seek not wealth or power in a partner but spirit. And in you, we sensed resilience, determination, and honesty. That is why I came. Ethan ran a hand down his face. Spirit? I just fix broken engines. And you fix them well, she replied calmly. That skill comes from patience, creativity, and strength. Qualities we admire deeply. First impression silence lingered between them, broken only by the hum of the hall's energy lights. Ethan studied her, this small alien woman who spoke with such certainty. She didn't seem embarrassed or unsure. She looked at him as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Finally, he found his voice. So this is some kind of cultural exchange marriage, right? A way for our people to form ties? Lyra tilted her head. Yes and no. It is an alliance, but it is also personal. Our matches are not made by politics alone. They are chosen by resonance of being. We believe we were drawn together for a reason. Ethan almost laughed again, but the sincerity in her tone stopped him. She believed every word. He scratched the back of his neck. Well, I guess I should say, nice to meet you, Lyra. Her smile deepened, bright as a sunrise. And I am pleased to meet you, Ethan Cole of Earth. The choice ahead. Later, as he walked back through the hall, Ethan's thoughts spun in circles. The words kept replaying in his head. You've been matched with a wife, and that's me. How was he supposed to explain this to his friends back home? To his fellow engineers? He could already imagine their laughter and disbelief. Yet there was no denying the truth. The Alliance had chosen, the Aurelians had confirmed, and Lyra had looked at him with eyes that seemed to see far deeper than the surface. Part of him wanted to run back to the safety of machines, wires, and engines. But another part, a quieter part, felt a flicker of curiosity. Who exactly was Lyra? Why him? And what did it mean to be matched with someone from another world? Ethan didn't know, but he had the uneasy feeling that his life had just changed forever. Ethan Cole woke up the next morning with the same thoughts circling through his head like an endless echo. You've been matched with a wife, and that's me. He sat up in his small quarters on Earth's orbital station, rubbing his eyes. The ceiling lights glowed dimly, simulating dawn. He hadn't slept much, tossing and turning while replaying every detail of the strange meeting. Lyra, petite, silver-haired, eyes that seemed to hold galaxies inside them, and the way she had spoken, calm, certain, and without the faintest doubt, still unsettled him. He swung his legs off the bed and muttered, I fix ships. That's all I do. How did I end up in this mess? But deep down he already knew the answer. The Alliance had decided, and when the Alliance decided, there was no simple way out. Summoned again by mid-cycle, another message appeared on his wrist device. Ethan Cole, you are invited to accompany Aurelian representative Lyra for cultural orientation. Please report to Docking Bay 3, he groaned. Of course, but curiosity itched at him too. Yesterday he had only seen her briefly, and she had spoken about things like spirit and resonance of being that made little sense to him. If he was really stuck in this, he might as well learn what it all meant. So he cleaned himself up, pulled on a fresh uniform, and made his way to Docking Bay 3, the Aurelian vessel. The docking bay was quieter than usual, most of the workers giving space to the gleaming ship parked at its center. It wasn't like the bulky freighters Ethan was used to. This vessel was sleek and curved, almost like a seashell carved from crystal. Its surface shimmered faintly, as though it absorbed the surrounding light. Standing at the base of the ramp was Lyra. She wore a flowing garment of pale blue that shifted colors when she moved. When she saw Ethan, her face brightened with the same warm smile as yesterday. Ethan, she said softly, as if greeting an old friend. You came. Didn't feel like I had much of a choice, he admitted, though without bitterness. There is always choice, Lyra replied gently. But I am glad you are here. She motioned for him to follow, and together they stepped into the Aurelian vessel, a world within a ship inside. Ethan was immediately struck by how different it felt from human ships. There were no sharp metal walls or flickering panels. The corridors were smooth, glowing softly as if alive. The air itself seemed lighter, carrying a faint floral scent. Your ship. It feels alive, Ethan said in awe. Lyra's eyes sparkled. In a way, it is. Our vessels are grown, not built. They are living constructs bonded with crystal and energy. They respond to us and we to them. Ethan shook his head slowly. Incredible. On Earth, ships are steel and bolts. Nothing like this. That is why we share, Lyra said. Every species brings something unique. Yours brings resilience and creativity. He gave a small chuckle. You keep saying that. Creativity, resilience, I don't see it. Lyra tilted her head, studying him as though she could peer past his words. That is because you look only at what is outside. But your spirit is stronger than you know. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Her words had weight, but he wasn't ready to believe them yet. Learning the Aurelians, they entered a wide chamber filled with floating lights and softly singing crystals. The walls displayed shifting images, gardens, oceans, and skies of a world Ethan had never seen. This is a memory hall, Lyra explained. It shows the essence of Aurelian life. Ethan stepped closer to one of the glowing panels. It showed a vast meadow under twin suns, silver grass swaying in the wind. Small children, Aurelians with bright eyes, ran through the fields, laughing. It's beautiful, he whispered. Lyra moved to stand beside him. That is my home. The world of Aurelia. Our people live close to the land and the stars. We believe balance is life. Every bond, every connection shapes who we are. Ethan frowned thoughtfully. And that's why you matched with me? Yes. She looked at him with those deep violet blue eyes. The council sensed our connection. My people do not see marriage as only personal. It is spiritual and cultural. When we join not just for ourselves, but for the harmony of our worlds. That's a lot of responsibility, Ethan muttered. True bonds always are, Lyra replied softly. The empathy of Aurelians. As they walked further, Lyra explained more of her people's abilities. We Aurelians are empathic. We do not hear thoughts, but we sense emotions. A ripple in your heart touches ours, even if no words are spoken. Ethan's eyebrows rose. So you can feel what I'm feeling? To a degree, Lyra said. Your hesitation, your curiosity, even your doubt, I sense them. But emotions are like colors in a painting, clearer when strong, softer when hidden. Ethan flushed slightly, realizing she might already know just how overwhelmed he was. That sounds invasive. Lyra shook her head gently. Not invasive, respectful, we do not pry. We only listen when hearts speak too loudly to be ignored. It helps us understand one another, to avoid conflict, to heal pain. He thought about that for a while. Maybe that's why you all seem so calm. If you can feel each other, there's less room for lies. Lyra smiled faintly. Perhaps, though even Aurelians struggle sometimes. We are not perfect. Shared meal later, she invited him to a small chamber where a table formed itself from the floor, carrying trays of food. Ethan blinked at the shimmering dishes. They looked like glowing petals and crystal fruits. Is this safe for humans? He asked warily. Lyra laughed softly, a sound like bells. Yes, our council made sure of it. She handed him a plate. The food was unlike anything he had tasted, sweet, cool, and refreshing, almost like eating light itself. He found himself smiling despite his nervousness. You enjoy it, Lyra said, pleased. Yeah, Ethan admitted. It's strange, but good. For the first time, they ate together in silence that wasn't uncomfortable. Something about the meal, the ship, and Lyra's calm presence made Ethan feel as though the walls he always carried were just a little lighter. Stories of Earth afterward. Lyra asked him about his own world. Tell me of Earth, she said. I have seen images, but I wish to hear your heart's view. Ethan hesitated, then smiled faintly. Earth is messy. Loud cities, crowded skies, storms, and deserts. But it's also home. You'd like the forests, I think. Tall trees that reach up like towers. And oceans, endless water stretching to the horizon. When you stand on a cliff and look out, it feels like forever. Lyra listened intently, her eyes glowing softly. Your words paint it brighter than any image. I would like to see these forests. And the oceans, Ethan chuckled. Maybe someday. Someday soon, Lyra said firmly. A glimpse of connection as their time in the vessel drew to a close. Ethan found himself relaxing more than he expected. Lyra wasn't forcing him to accept anything. She simply showed him her world, answered his questions, and listened. When they stood again in the memory hall, Lyra placed her small hand lightly against her chest. I know this path feels heavy for you. But I ask only one thing. Walk with me for a time. Learn and let me learn from you. If after all you do not wish this bond, we will find another way." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "You'd let me refuse?" Her smile was gentle. "A bond without choice is not a bond. My people honor freedom. So yes, if you wish it," he exhaled slowly. Somehow those words eased a tension inside him he hadn't even realized was there. For the first time, he looked at Lyra not just as a strange alien declaring herself his wife, but as someone willing to meet him halfway. Ethan Cole never thought his life would turn in such a strange direction. One day he was tightening plasma coils in a docking bay, and the next he was walking inside alien vessels with a petite alien who calmly introduced herself as his wife. Lyra. Her presence still puzzled him. She was small, graceful, and gentle, yet she carried herself with a quiet confidence that made her seem taller than she was. She spoke of bonds, spirit, and resonance as if those things were as real as engines and wires. Ethan wasn't sure if he believed in all that, but he couldn't deny something was happening. He had agreed to walk with her for a while, to learn, and she had promised the bond would only hold if he chose it. He thought that would give him time to breathe. He was wrong. The council's announcement. The next cycle, Ethan was summoned again to the diplomatic hall. This time, the chamber was filled with representatives from several species. The tall reptilians with scaled robes, the insectoid beings clicking softly, humans in formal suits, and at the center, the Aurelian envoy. Lyra stood beside them, her calm eyes meeting his. A human official cleared her throat and spoke. As part of the cultural exchange program, matched partners must undergo a series of compatibility trials. These trials test cooperation, understanding, and resilience. They ensure the bond is not only symbolic but functional. Ethan stiffened. "Trials? What kind of trials?" The official's lips curved faintly. "You'll see." Lyra glanced at him and whispered, "Do not fear. We will face them together." Her words helped slightly, but Ethan's stomach still churned. Trial 1. The Puzzle of Energy. The first trial took place in a large circular chamber filled with glowing panels and shifting crystal blocks. At the far end, a gate pulsed with light, locked tight. A voice echoed, "To proceed, align the flow of energy. Only unity of logic and intuition will unlock the path." Ethan looked at the mess of shifting crystals. "This looks like a power grid puzzle. I've done things like this with ship engines." Lyra touched one of the blocks. It hummed softly, glowing brighter. "The crystals sing with energy. I can feel the flow, but the pattern is unclear." Ethan crouched beside her, studying the layout. "All right. If we connect them in a chain, the energy should move toward the gate. But the pattern keeps changing." Lyra closed her eyes, placing her hand gently on the crystals. "They respond to emotion as well as touch. If we remain calm, the pattern stabilizes." Ethan raised his brows. "Seriously? These things react to emotions?" "Yes, try." He hesitated but followed her lead, resting his hand on the glowing surface. At first, the lines flickered wildly. His doubt made the pattern unstable, but Lyra's calm presence flowed into him like steady waves. Slowly, his tension eased. The crystals aligned. A hum filled the chamber as energy surged toward the gate. With a brilliant flash, the lock dissolved. The voice declared, "First trial complete." Ethan exhaled in disbelief. "That actually worked." Lyra smiled gently. "Because you believed even for a moment." He gave a small chuckle. "Or maybe because you kept me from panicking." "Both," she said simply. Trial 2. The Simulation of Survival. The second trial was more difficult. Ethan and Lyra were placed in a vast holographic environment, an alien wilderness filled with jagged cliffs, rushing rivers, and strange creatures. The voice echoed again. "Survive until the cycle ends. Only through cooperation will you endure," Ethan sighed. "Great. Now we're in a survival test." Lyra scanned the terrain, her eyes glowing faintly. "We must find shelter first." "The storms here are strong," he nodded. "Agreed. I'll handle the structure. Can you sense anything dangerous?" She closed her eyes briefly. "The creatures nearby are curious but not hostile. Farther away there is hunger. Predators." Her ability to sense emotions startled him again, but he didn't question it. They moved quickly to a cliffside, where Ethan gathered rocks and branches. Using his engineering skills, he built a simple lean-to. When a storm swept through, the winds howled fiercely, but their shelter held. Later, a beast resembling a scaled wolf approached, growling low. Ethan reached for a makeshift spear, but Lyra raised her hand calmly. Wait. It is not angry, it is afraid. She stepped forward slowly, her voice soothing. The creature's growls softened. Within moments, it lowered its head and retreated. Ethan stared in amazement. You just calmed a predator. Lyra smiled faintly. Fear can be louder than rage. When you soothe it, conflict fades. Together, they endured the cycle. When the wilderness dissolved back into the chamber, the voice spoke. Second trial complete. Ethan turned to Lyra, shaking his head in wonder. You saved us, again. No, Lyra said softly. We saved each other. Without your shelter, the storm would have broken us. Trial 3. The Bridge of Trust. The third trial seemed deceptively simple. They entered a chamber where a vast chasm stretched before them, with no visible bottom. Across the gap was the exit. Only a narrow, glowing bridge appeared, but it was incomplete, stopping halfway. The voice said, One must walk blind. The other must guide. Trust is the bridge, Ethan frowned. Blind? That sounds dangerous. Lyra stepped forward without hesitation. I will guide. You will walk. Wait, what? Why me? Because you struggle most with trust, she said gently. This is your trial. Ethan swallowed hard. She was right. Trust didn't come easy to him. But her calm certainty made it hard to argue. A band of light covered his eyes, plunging him into darkness. His heart raced. He hated not seeing where he was going. Lyra? He whispered. I am here, her voice answered, calm and steady. Take one step forward, good, now to the left, yes, keep going. Step by step, she guided him. Each movement was a leap of faith. His legs trembled, his breath came fast, but her voice never wavered. Almost there, she said. 2 more steps, yes, now one final step forward. The ground solidified under his feet. The blindfold dissolved. They stood together at the far side of the chasm. Ethan exhaled sharply, his whole body shaking. I thought I was going to fall. Lyra's eyes glowed warmly. And yet you did not, because you trusted. For the first time, Ethan didn't argue. He simply nodded. Reflections. After the trials, when the trials ended, the council praised their success. Many pairs had failed or argued, but Ethan and Lyra had completed all 3 together. As they left the chamber, Ethan felt strangely lighter. Each trial had forced him to rely on her and to see his own strengths through her eyes. On the walkway back to the docking bays, he finally spoke. I still don't understand why I was chosen, but I think I'm starting to see why you believe in this bond. Lyra's smile was gentle, almost proud. It is not only belief, Ethan, it is truth. You have shown it already. He looked at her for a long moment, then let out a small laugh. You're impossible, you know that? Perhaps, she replied softly. But sometimes the impossible is only the beginning. A fragile beginning. That night, as Ethan lay in his quarters, he thought back to the trials. The way she had calmed the crystals. The way she soothed the predator. The way her voice had carried him across the bridge when he couldn't see. He remembered her words. A bond without choice is not a bond. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, this strange match wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe it was a beginning. The trials were over. Ethan Cole and Lyra of the Aurelians had faced puzzles, storms, predators, and even a bridge of trust. Together they had succeeded where others had failed. For Ethan, it had been eye-opening. He had started the trials doubtful, but each challenge showed him something new about himself and about Lyra. She wasn't just a delicate alien smiling at him with glowing eyes. She was clever, brave, and unshakably calm. And she saw something in him he hadn't seen in himself. The council praised them. Many representatives whispered among themselves, impressed by the partnership between human and Aurelian. Humanity's reputation in the alliance was rising, but not everyone was pleased. Whispers of jealousy among the alliance. There were species who saw humans as upstarts. Earth was new to the stars, still learning, still growing. Some envoys believed humans should remain in the shadows for centuries before standing beside older races. One such faction was the Dravik Collective, a proud and powerful species with crimson skin and horn-like ridges. They valued strength and tradition, and they looked at humanity with disdain. To them, the idea that a young human engineer could form a match with an Aurelian representative, one of the most respected species in the alliance, was insulting. In private chambers, Dravik voices hissed, "This human's success is dangerous. If the Aurelians lift them up, other species will follow." They must be humbled before they rise too far. And so, they plotted. An uneasy, calm Ethan didn't know any of this. He was simply trying to adjust to his strange new life. Walking through the station one evening, he found himself side by side with Lyra. The corridor windows stretched wide, showing Earth below, glowing blue and green against the stars. "You're quiet tonight," Lyra said softly. He gave a small shrug. "Just thinking. About everything. About us," her eyes glowed faintly. "Do you regret walking this path?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, not anymore. At first I thought it was all some mistake. But after the trials, I guess I'm starting to see the point. We worked well together." Lyra's lips curved into a smile. "That pleases me." Ethan leaned against the window rail, staring at Earth. I don't know where this is leading. You call me your partner, your bond, but I still feel like I don't deserve it." "You doubt yourself too much," Lyra replied. "Worth is not measured by status or age. It is measured by the heart's strength. And yours is stronger than you realize." Her words warmed him. He didn't say it out loud, but part of him was starting to believe her. The sabotage. The next day, Ethan and Lyra attended a summit. Delegates from across the galaxy filled a grand chamber, seated in rings around a central platform. The atmosphere was formal but tense. Humanity's recent success in the trials had drawn attention, and not all of it was kind. As the Aurelians spoke of cooperation, Ethan felt a prickling sensation at the back of his neck. Lyra, standing beside him, stiffened slightly. Her eyes narrowed. "Something is wrong," she whispered. Before he could ask, the chamber lights flickered. A sharp alarm blared. Panels on the walls sparked, and then, with a violent crack, a section of the ceiling collapsed. Panic spread instantly. Delegates shouted and scrambled as debris crashed down. Energy barriers failed, sending sparks across the floor. Ethan reacted without thinking. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her clear of falling beams. She stumbled but kept her balance. "This isn't an accident," she said, voice steady despite the chaos. "I can feel intent, anger, hatred, sabotage working together." Smoke filled the chamber. Delegates were trapped beneath debris. Others tried to escape through jammed doors. Ethan coughed, pulling off his jacket to shield his mouth. "We have to help them." Lyra nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "I will calm the panic. You free the trapped." She stepped into the crowd, her presence radiating calm. Her voice carried softly, soothing frantic hearts. Slowly, the shouting lessened. Delegates who had been frozen in fear began to move more rationally. Meanwhile, Ethan knelt beside a fallen beam, pinning an insectoid envoy. He examined the supports quickly, then shouted, "Need a lever!" Spotting a broken panel, he jammed it under the beam and pushed with all his strength. Muscles strained, sweat beaded on his brow, but the beam shifted just enough for the envoy to crawl free. "Go," Ethan urged. One by one, he repeated the process, freeing those he could. His arms ached, his lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Together, Ethan and Lyra turned chaos into order. The hidden threat. As the smoke cleared, Ethan spotted something near the summit's energy core, a device, blinking with a dangerous red light. "Lyra," he shouted. "There's a bomb." Her eyes widened. "We must disable it before it reaches full charge." They raced to the core. The device pulsed faster, humming ominously. Ethan dropped to his knees, prying open the casing. Inside, unfamiliar wires and crystals glowed dangerously. "I've never seen tech like this," he muttered, hands shaking. "But I think I can disarm it if I reroute the energy flow." Lyra knelt beside him, placing her small hands over the crystals. "They respond to emotion like the trial puzzle. I will steady the flow while you work." Ethan nodded. Sweat trickled down his temple as he worked quickly, guided by instinct and years of fixing engines. Lyra's calm presence steadied the pulsing crystals, preventing a runaway surge. Finally, with a sharp snap, he severed the last wire. The red light died. The device went silent. Ethan exhaled in relief. "It's safe." Lyra touched his arm lightly, her eyes glowing with pride. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected, unmasking the plot. The summit chamber filled with murmurs as the delegates regrouped. Officials rushed in, securing the area. Investigators soon confirmed what Lyra had sensed. The attack was no accident. It was sabotage. Fragments of the device carried a distinct signature, the technology of the Dravik Collective. Gasps and anger swept through the chamber. The Dravik representatives tried to deny involvement, but suspicion hung heavy. Ethan stood at Lyra's side as the council examined the evidence. Though only a human engineer, His actions in saving lives and disarming the bomb did not go unnoticed. Delegates looked at him with new respect. One envoy whispered, "Perhaps the Aurelians were right about humans." Another nodded. "Resourceful, loyal, they adapt quickly." The words reached Ethan's ears. For the first time, he felt not like an outsider, but like someone who belonged. Quiet after the storm later. After the summit was secured and the injured were tended to, Ethan and Lyra walked back to the docking bay. The corridor was quiet, a sharp contrast to the chaos earlier. Ethan rubbed his sore arms. That was close. Too close. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes soft but steady. "And yet you stood firm. You saved many today." He gave a tired laugh. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," she said firmly. "Not anyone. Many froze, many fled. You acted." Ethan fell silent. He wasn't used to being praised, not like this. But hearing it from her made his chest feel strangely warm. They stopped by the window, staring out at the stars. Lyra's reflection shimmered beside his. "This attack," she said quietly, "was meant to divide us, to make our bond seem weak, but instead it showed the opposite." Ethan nodded slowly. "They wanted to tear us down, but they just made us stronger." For a long moment they stood side by side in silence, the stars stretching endlessly before them. A turning point. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He replayed everything in his mind: the collapsing ceiling, the trapped delegates, the bomb. But what echoed most clearly was the moment he and Lyra worked in perfect balance to disarm the device. Logic and intuition, hands and heart, human and Aurelian. They had been matched by some council decision, yes, but in that moment it felt like something deeper, something real. He remembered Lyra's words from the trials. Sometimes the impossible is only the beginning. And now, he was starting to believe them. The sabotage had shaken the alliance, but it had also revealed something stronger than fear: unity. When Ethan Cole and Lyra worked together to save the summit, they had proven more than just their partnership. They had shown that human and alien could act as one, yet victory was only temporary. The Dravik collective, cornered by evidence, denied responsibility. Their envoys stormed out of the chambers, furious and humiliated. Whispers spread across the station, whispers of war. The fragile peace of the alliance trembled, the weight of responsibility. In the following days, Ethan found himself at the center of attention. Everywhere he walked, envoys from other worlds greeted him with respect. Some even offered thanks for saving their lives. For a simple engineer, it was overwhelming. One morning he stood at the station balcony, watching ships depart through the docking lanes. Lyra approached quietly, her silver robes flowing like soft light. "You avoid the crowds again?" she said gently. Ethan sighed. "I never asked for all this. I'm just a guy who fixed engines. Now everyone looks at me like I'm important." "You are important," Lyra replied. Her golden eyes glowed softly as she studied him. "Not because you seek attention, but because you act when others freeze." "That is rare," Ethan shook his head. "I'm not some hero. I only did what had to be done." Lyra tilted her head, a smile tugging at her lips. "And that, Ethan Cole, is why they see you as one." Her words made him pause. Deep inside, a seed of belief began to grow. Maybe he wasn't just surviving anymore. Maybe he was becoming something more. Tensions rise. The Alliance Council gathered again days later, but the atmosphere was heavier than before. Many delegates demanded punishment for the Dravik. Others urged caution, afraid that open conflict would shatter fragile unity. Lyra and Ethan were asked to stand before the council. An elder Aurelian spoke. "You both prevented a great tragedy. Your bond saved many lives, but the danger is not over. The Dravik grow restless. They may strike again." Ethan shifted uneasily under so many eyes. "So what do you want us to do?" "I can't fight an entire species." Lyra placed a calm hand on his arm. "The council does not ask us to fight alone. They ask us to stand as a symbol, a bond stronger than fear." The words carried across the chamber. Some nodded in agreement. Others frowned. But one thing was clear. The human and the Aurelian could no longer step aside. They were part of the galaxy's story now. A sudden attack that night. Ethan was walking back to his quarters when the lights flickered again. His instincts sharpened. Something felt wrong. "Lyra?" He called softly into his communicator. No answer. The corridor darkened and shadows moved. Out of the gloom, tall Dravic figures emerged, their red skin glowing faintly under emergency lights. The leader hissed, "Human, you shame us before the council. You weaken the alliance with your presence." Ethan's heart pounded. He wasn't a soldier. He had no weapon, but he stood firm. "If you wanted to scare me, you should have tried before I faced collapsing ceilings and bombs." "I'm not running." The Dravic stepped closer, claws scraping the wall. "Then you will fall." Before they could strike, a glow filled the corridor. Lyra appeared, her presence calm yet fierce, golden light radiating from her form. "You will not harm him," she said firmly. The Dravic hesitated at her voice. In that moment, Ethan felt something stronger than fear: trust. He knew they could stand together just as they always had. The choice to stand. The Dravic lunged, but Ethan and Lyra moved as one. Ethan grabbed a loose pipe from the wall, swinging it to deflect a strike. Lyra's hands glowed, projecting a shimmering shield that blocked another blow. They weren't soldiers. They weren't trained fighters. But together they held their ground. The clash echoed through the corridor until security forces arrived. The Dravic, unwilling to be captured, retreated into the shadows, vanishing before reinforcements could corner them. Breathing heavily, Ethan leaned against the wall. That was too close. Lyra touched his shoulder, her eyes filled with quiet pride. "Yet again you did not falter. You chose to stand." Ethan managed a tired grin. "Guess I'm getting used to this." The turning tide. The attempted attack changed everything. Evidence was undeniable now. The Dravic were behind the sabotage. Their schemes could no longer be hidden. The Alliance Council declared sanctions, cutting Dravic influence. More importantly, many races began speaking of humanity with new respect. "They stand firm," one envoy said. "They are new, but their courage is real," another agreed. For the first time, humanity's voice was heard not as a whisper, but as part of the chorus. A private moment that evening. Ethan and Lyra returned to the observation deck. Stars glittered in endless silence. Earth spun slowly below, fragile yet radiant. Ethan leaned on the railing, his voice quiet. "I used to look up at the stars and wonder if we even mattered out here. Now I feel like we're part of something bigger." Lyra stood close beside him, her voice soft. "You matter. Humanity matters, and our bond proves it." He glanced at her, her delicate frame glowing with soft light, her smile gentle. "When you first told me I was your match, I thought it was crazy. But now I think I get it. We're stronger together." Her golden eyes shone, reflecting the stars. "Yes, Ethan Cole, together, we are unbreakable." For a long moment they simply stood side by side, watching the galaxy stretch before them. A symbol for the future. Weeks later, the Alliance held a final gathering. This time it was not to argue, but to celebrate. Ethan and Lyra stood before the chamber as envoys from 100 worlds rose in respect. Their names were spoken not as outsiders, but as symbols of hope. The elder Aurelian declared, "This human and this Aurelian remind us all that bonds are not chains of politics, but bridges of trust. May we learn from them." Applause filled the chamber. Ethan shifted awkwardly, unused to such honor, but Lyra's hand slipped into his. Her touch was steady, reminding him he wasn't alone. The journey continues later. As they prepared to board a shuttle for a new mission, Ethan looked around the busy docking bay. Crews shouted, engines roared, and banners of different worlds fluttered. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Lyra's smile was calm and certain. "Yes, there will be more challenges, more shadows, but also more light. And we will face it together." Ethan nodded, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Confidence. He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He wasn't just a human lost among the stars. He was part of a bond, part of a future. And as the shuttle lifted into the sky, he knew the truth. They hadn't just been matched by chance. They had been matched by destiny, epilogue, the unbreakable bonfire across the galaxy. Stories of Ethan and Lyra spread. On worlds where humans were unknown, children whispered their names. On planets scarred by war, leaders spoke of trust and unity. And on Earth, people looked to the stars with new hope, knowing that one of their own had stood tall among the cosmos. Ethan Cole and Lyra of the Aurelians were no longer just partners. They were a living symbol, proof that no matter the distance, no matter the difference, two hearts could stand together and shape the future. Their journey was far from over. But whatever came next, they would face it side by side, because their bond was unbreakable.